The autumn rain drummed against the windows of our apartment as I returned home early from work. My tail, sleek and russet like a fox's, was damp from the downpour, and I shook it off in the entryway. I'd forgotten some important contracts and needed them for tomorrow's meeting. As I approached our bedroom, I heard voices. My wife Elena's laugh echoed through the hallway, mixed with the chatter of her friends on speakerphone. I paused, my fox-like ears twitching instinctively at the sound. "Come on, Elena," one of her friends teased. "You and Adrian have been married 3 years. Are you really happy?" There was a pause. My heart quickened as I waited for her response, my blonde, wavy hair still dripping from the rain. "Happy enough, I guess," Elena said with a casual tone that made my stomach twist. "I mean, he's stable, reliable, but honestly, if something better came along, someone more exciting, more successful, I'd probably take it. Adrian's just there." Her friends giggled, and someone added, "Girl, you're terrible." "I'm just being honest," Elena continued, her voice light and dismissive. "He's a placeholder until I find what I really want. He doesn't need to know that, though." I stood frozen in the hallway, my tail hanging limply behind me. The contracts in my hands suddenly felt weightless. My cat-like ears flattened against my head as the words sank in like poison. 3 years of marriage, of building a life together, of believing we were partners, reduced to me being a placeholder. The rain outside seemed to grow louder, matching the storm building inside my chest. I'd always suspected Elena kept emotional distance, but I'd told myself it was just her personality. Now I knew the truth. She didn't love me. She was simply waiting for something better. I could have stormed in, confronted her immediately. Part of me wanted to. But another part, the part that had learned hard lessons about self-respect, knew that anger wouldn't give me what I needed. What I needed was clarity and a plan. Quietly, I turned and left the apartment, my heart heavy, but my mind beginning to clear.
I didn't return home until late that evening. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets gleaming under the streetlights. When I walked in, Elena was lounging on the couch, her own tail, a beautiful blend of cat and fox genetics like mine, curled around her legs. She looked up from her phone and smiled. "Hey, babe, you're home late." "Meetings ran long," I said evenly, setting my briefcase down. My voice betrayed nothing. Over the next few days, I watched her differently. I noticed how she checked her phone constantly, how her eyes wandered when we were out together, always scanning for something or someone more interesting. I saw the way she talked about our future in vague terms, never committing to the dreams we'd once shared. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I prepared. I consulted a lawyer quietly, understanding my options. I organized our finances, separating what was mine. I reached out to old friends I'd neglected during our marriage, rebuilding connections. And most importantly, I worked on myself, going to the gym, taking up hobbies I'd abandoned, rediscovering who Adrian was outside of being Elena's husband. One evening, she noticed the change. We were having dinner and she reached across the table, her slender fingers with their retractable claws brushing mine. "You seem different lately," she said, tilting her head. Her blonde wavy hair cascaded over one shoulder, and her fox ears perked with curiosity. "More distant." I met her gaze steadily. "Do I?" "Yeah. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I replied, taking a sip of wine. "Just thinking about things." "What things?" Her tail swished nervously behind her. I could have told her then. Instead, I smiled. "Just life, work, the future." She seemed satisfied with that answer, but I saw the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Good. Let her wonder. That night, she initiated intimacy for the first time in weeks. In our bedroom, she pressed against me, her body warm and familiar. Her hands traced the muscles I had been building, her ears flattened in that way they did when she was aroused. We made love slowly, deliberately. But this time, I noticed something I'd been blind to before. Even in our most intimate moments, there was a distance in her eyes, as if part of her was somewhere else, with someone else.
The opportunity came 2 weeks later. Elena had invited some friends over for drinks, including the same ones from that phone call. I'd made sure to be home, despite her subtle hints that I should make myself scarce. I played the gracious host, serving drinks and making small talk. My fox ears caught every whispered conversation, every knowing glance exchanged between Elena and her friends. They thought they were so clever, so subtle. As the evening wore on and wine flowed freely, the conversation grew bolder. One of her friends, emboldened by alcohol, turned to me with a mischievous grin. "So, Adrian, what's your secret? How do you keep Elena so happy?" The room quieted slightly. Elena's tail stiffened and she shot her friend a warning look. But I smiled calmly, setting down my glass. "That's an interesting question," I said, my voice pleasant. "Maybe you should ask Elena what makes her happy. I'm curious myself." Elena's ears flattened slightly, a sign of discomfort. "Adrian, don't be weird." "I'm not being weird. I'm being honest." I turned to face her fully, my tail curling with controlled tension. "Actually, I've been meaning to have an honest conversation with you, Elena. Maybe now's a good time." Her friends exchanged glances. The atmosphere shifted, tension crackling like electricity. "What are you talking about?" Elena asked, her voice tight. "I'm talking about what you said a few weeks ago, on your phone call with these very same friends, about how I'm just stable and reliable, about how you dump me if something better came along, about how I'm a placeholder." The color drained from Elena's face. Her friends suddenly found their drinks fascinating. The silence was deafening. You were listening?" she stammered. "I came home early for some contracts, and yes, I heard everything. Every word about how I'm just there until you find what you really want. Adrian, I didn't mean don't." I held up a hand, my voice still steady but firm. "Don't insult me further by lying. You meant exactly what you said, and honestly, thank you." She blinked, confused. "What?" "Thank you for being honest when you thought I couldn't hear, because now I know exactly where I stand, and I know exactly what I need to do." Elena's friends had made hasty excuses and left within minutes, leaving us alone in the suddenly too quiet apartment. She stood across from me, her blonde hair disheveled, her tail lashing behind her with agitation. "Adrian, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" I asked, my voice still maddeningly calm. "Explain that you've been using me? That our entire marriage has been you settling while you wait for someone better?" "It wasn't like that." Her ears pinned back defensively. "I was just venting to my friends. Everyone says things they don't mean." "Do they?" I crossed my arms, my only ears forward and alert. "Because it sounded pretty clear to me. You called me a placeholder, Elena. You said you'd leave if something better came along. Those aren't words you say when you're just venting. Those are words that reveal how you really feel." She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "You're taking it out of context. I love you." "No, you don't." The words came out flat, final. "And I think you know that. Maybe you care about me in some way. Maybe you appreciate what I provide. But love? Real love doesn't come with conditions and upgrades. Real love doesn't treat people as disposable." Tears welled in her eyes. "So what, you're just going to throw away 3 years of marriage over one comment? One comment?" I laughed bitterly. "Elena, that comment just confirmed what I've felt for months. The distance, the way you're always looking past me for something more. The way you've treated our relationship like a temporary arrangement. That's not fair." "What's not fair?" I interrupted, my voice finally rising with emotion. "Is spending 3 years loving someone who was never fully committed to loving me back. What's not fair is being someone's second choice, their backup plan." She moved toward me, her hand reaching for mine. "Adrian, please, I made a mistake. I was being stupid and shallow, but we can work through this." I stepped back, my tail curling protectively around myself. "Can we? Because here's what I've realized. Even if you apologize, even if you promise to change, I'll always know. I'll always remember that you saw me as replaceable, and I deserve better than that." "Everyone makes mistakes," she cried, her own tears flowing now. "You're right, and my mistake was staying with someone who never valued me properly." I walked to the bedroom, pulling out the suitcase I'd already arranged earlier. "I've already arranged a place to stay. I'll come back for the rest of my things later." Her face crumpled. "You're leaving? Just like that?" I paused at the door, looking back at her one final time. "No, not just like that. I'm leaving because you were already gone long before I heard that phone call."
3 months later, I sat in my new apartment. Smaller, but entirely mine. My tail swished contentedly as I reviewed some work papers, my fox ears twitching at the sounds of life in my new neighborhood. Elena had tried everything at first. Tearful calls, long messages explaining how she'd made a terrible mistake, even showing up at my workplace. But I had held firm. The divorce proceedings were underway, clean and simple, since we'd had a prenuptial agreement. My friends had rallied around me, surprised but supportive. My sister had admitted she'd never liked Elena, sensing the same coldness I'd been blind to. My mother had simply hugged me and said, "You deserve someone who chooses you first, not as a backup plan." And she was right. The apartment door buzzed. I opened it to find Natasha, a colleague I'd grown close to over recent weeks. She was different from Elena. Her reddish-brown tail and ears spoke of pure fox genetics, and her dark wavy hair framed a face full of genuine warmth. "Ready for dinner?" she asked, her smile reaching her eyes in a way Elena's never quite had. "Almost," I said, grabbing my jacket. "How was your day?" As we walked to the restaurant, she told me about a difficult client, and I found myself genuinely interested, engaged. She asked about my work, too, listening intently, asking thoughtful questions. At dinner, over wine and laughter, she reached across the table and took my hand. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "When I first met you, you seemed dimmed somehow, like you were there but not fully present." Her ears tilted forward earnestly. "But lately, you've come alive. It's beautiful to see." I squeezed her hand, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. I was in a relationship where I was never quite enough, where I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Their loss," she said simply. "Anyone who couldn't see your worth was a fool." That night, back at my apartment, we sat on my couch talking until late. When she leaned in to kiss me, it felt different from anything with Elena. Present, real, chosen. As we made love for the first time, slowly exploring each other with genuine curiosity and care, I realized something profound. Elena's cruelty had been a gift in disguise. It had forced me to value myself enough to walk away. It had taught me that self-respect means refusing to beg someone to love you. Later, as Natasha slept beside me, her tail intertwined with mine, I felt truly at peace. Elena had called me a placeholder, something to be discarded when better came along. But she'd been wrong about one thing. I wasn't the placeholder in that relationship. She was. And now I'd found something real. Someone who saw me not as a backup plan, but as a first choice. Someone who didn't need something better, because she already knew what she had. My response to Elena's betrayal hadn't been rage or revenge. It had been something far more powerful. Knowing my worth and walking away with dignity. And that had changed everything. The end.